What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Commanders Uncovered. I'm your host, Debo. Thank you guys for tuning in last time, and thank you guys for joining me again for episode 2. I got an exciting thing planned for you guys today. These two guys are going to be my background again. I'm going to switch it up next episode, I promise, but I thought it was fitting since I'm going to be talking about the NFL draft to kind of have these guys behind me and have me in the war room with them because this episode, I'm going to be going through a 7-round Commanders mock draft where I take over the Commanders, make some picks for them, see what the best moves are for them in the draft and what I think they should do. Um, a lot of question marks coming up into this draft, and the Commanders have 6 picks in the top 100. So they got to hit on these picks and get guys who not only are going to buy into the culture, which I talked about last time a lot, which is how this culture is changing and how much it's getting better and improving with the new front office, new coaching staff, whatever that may be. But guys who are going to be on the field and be able to produce day one, that is the most important thing for this team, getting young guys who are going to be willing to develop, able to play right away, impact this team in a positive fashion. Because the draft is coming up, man. It's next Thursday. It's April 25th. It's in a few days, less than a week away. So, man, it's a very exciting time for NFL fans in general and for Commanders fans, considering they have 6 picks in the top 100. So, I'm going to be talking about all of that. NFL draft, very exciting time. And I'm going to be talking a lot about the choice at number 2 because I think at this point, a lot of people are talking about Jayden Daniels being the pick, and it's either going to be him or Drake Maye. And I know that they've had other guys in on visits, such as J.J. McCarthy. I don't see them taking J.J. McCarthy at 2. I think it's going to be Jayden Daniels based on everything I have seen and heard. So, I'm going to talk about the comparison between those two guys, Daniels and Maye. And I also had a little back and forth with a former Washington Commanders quarterback on the debate between Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye. I'm going to talk about all of it here today. Very exciting to be back. Episode 2. Roll the intro. The Commanders are lucky to have the choice between Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels here at pick number 2. And man, like I mentioned earlier, and I touched on it a little bit in the last episode, I do prefer Maye over Jayden Daniels. I think his play style is more fit for the NFL than Jayden Daniels. I'm a little concerned about Daniels' durability, considering that he took a few big hits, man, in college. And I know you guys have all seen those clips of him taking hits, but he is a dynamic playmaker, Jayden, and he can really add into the run game with his legs. And I know that's something Cliff Kingsbury is going to want. I think Drake Maye can add into the run game as well with his legs. I just feel as though Jayden Daniels is more fit to be a guy who you can give design runs to. You can go 11 on 11, true 11 on 11 football with a quarterback sweep or read options, much like we saw with Justin Fields and how he was utilized in Chicago. I think they can come up with something similar for Jayden Daniels. And considering what we saw in Arizona with Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, that sort of duo, and how Kyler Murray performed as a runner, I think Jayden Daniels is the pick here. So we're going to go with Jayden Daniels. And let's pause it. Let's pause it. You guys see the next 4 picks, but let's dive in to Jayden Daniels versus Drake Maye. All right, to start this Drake Maye versus Jayden Daniels debate, I'm going to bring up something that happened a few days ago here on Twitter. Robert Griffin III was talking about Drake Maye or Jayden Daniels. He basically chalked it up to beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Every team sees it differently. He was lobbying for Jayden Daniels over Drake Maye. I mean, to each their own. Everyone has their opinion. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I agree with in terms of these two guys. Like, these two guys, they can be very hit or very miss for anyone who is an analyst or a draft insider. These guys are both going to play at a high level. They're both going to be top 5 picks, and they both played at a high level in college. Jayden Daniels, Heisman winner. Drake Maye has all the tools to be a great NFL quarterback and is a great NFL prospect. I responded with RG3 probably sees a lot of himself in Jayden Daniels. Now, this was not I was not taking a shot at RG3. I agree, and we'll get to this. I agree that I see a lot of RG3 in Jayden Daniels, especially as a runner coming out of college, man. These two guys, similar frame. They both have a similar running style. I know RG3 did not take as many risks as Jayden Daniels did in college, but as a runner, I can see very much similarities between these two guys. They were both Heisman winners, so you know how that goes. RG3 with a response to me. And when I saw this, I was very, very excited and not excited at the same time because I didn't want him to think I was taking a shot at him because I wasn't. I just believe Drake Maye is better prospect. Whatever. RG3 responds with Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye are both tall, athletic quarterbacks who can grow their frames, and athleticism is a part of their game. I agree. I agree. I responded with, I see a lot of you in Jayden as well, RG3. Daniels fits the Cliff Kingsbury prototype better than Maye. I just think Maye's play style is more fit to be successful in the NFL. Daniels can add into the run game at a higher level, though. RG3, my point is Maye is also an athletic QB, and he gives me some knuckles. Thank you, RG3. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. And I agree, and I shot my shot. Why don't you come on the pod? That's not going to happen anytime soon. Maybe down the line in a few years, we'll see. Maybe I get to talk to RG3. But for now, that's not going to happen. This guy's busy. He's got other stuff to do, whatever. I shot my shot. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? But interesting nugget that RG3 brought up here is that growing their frames and athleticism is a part of their game, which I completely agree with. So, as I mentioned earlier, all the signs here are leaning to Jayden Daniels being the number 2 pick for the Commanders. The betting markets have moved heavily in favor. You're seeing minus 300 around most books. There's Jayden Daniels in a Commanders jersey. Great, great. I think it's a lot because of what Adam Schefter has talked about. And he has been on multiple podcasts and even his own podcast talking about the signs pointing to Jayden Daniels being the number 2 pick to Washington. I really think that plays a big role considering it's Adam Schefter, who is the biggest NFL insider in the planet. And, who's going to go against his word at this point in his career? And yeah, all the signs pointing to Jayden Daniels being the number 2 pick, sure. The Marcus Mariota acquisition was certainly a sign of who they kind of wanted as their prototype and a quarterback. And this stuff that Adam Schefter's saying, yeah, it makes everything a lot better, and it makes the betting market swing in a certain way. So I can get behind it. So the big reason why Jayden Daniels is probably going to be the pick here at 2 is his running ability and his ability to be a serious X factor with his legs. Now, Cliff Kingsbury being the offensive coordinator certainly plays a role in this selection. I'm not sure how big of a role that's going to play, but I mean, considering that he was the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray in his first 4 seasons in the NFL, he was certainly utilized as a runner a lot. Year 1, Kyler's rookie season, Cliff Kingsbury, first year head coach of Arizona. Kyler had 93 attempts, 544 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. Year 2, when the Cardinals were very good for a few games in 2020, 133 attempts for Kyler, 819 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns. He ran for 52 first downs. He was over 6 yards per carry, 51 rushing yards per game, 8 rushing attempts per game for Kyler. These were all career highs for him, all career highs. And they found a lot of success early on in the season using Kyler as a runner. And that's something that Cliff loves to do with the quarterbacks. They did fall off at the end of the season there. And then in 21 and 22, Kyler missed a few games in both years. Obviously, 21, he missed a few towards the end of the year there. And then in 22 was the torn ACL, or the serious injury he suffered against the Patriots on prime time. He had 88 rushing attempts in 14 games for 423 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2021. And then in 2022, he had 67 attempts for 418 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. He was over 6 yards per carry in 22 before the injury. And a big thing here is this chart right here from Football Insights: quarterback prospects career data breakdown under pressure. So, guys who are scrambling under pressure more, and their average time to throw in college. We look here, the x-axis, average time to throw, scramble percentage, 5% being at the top, 25% being at the bottom. You see Jayden Daniels there at the bottom, right, little less than 4 seconds average time to throw in his time at college, and a 25% scramble rate. Now, do I like the 25% scramble rate number? No, I don't love it. I can't say I love it. However, Jayden Daniels is certainly an X factor in the running game, and he can allow you to go true 11 on 11. Cliff Kingsbury didn't really utilize or Kyler Murray in a way that was, hey, quarterback power, quarterback sweeps. It was more zone read based and option based, and him scrambling was a lot of it too. And Jayden Daniels, for a guy who has a very talented arm, he can throw the ball downfield. Pretty good accuracy. He has a cannon. Being able to scramble and extend these plays is huge in the NFL. Huge in the NFL. I mean, I hate to bring up Justin Fields, but it's kind of a similar play style. Like, he runs a lot, he can scramble, he can throw the ball downfield. He's not as accurate as Jayden Daniels, I don't think, but the ability to extend plays is a huge X factor. And Justin Fields, whether you like him or not, he's created a lot of highlights extending plays, keeping his eyes downfield, and then just being able to scramble and pick up huge chunk gains in the scramble game. I think Jayden Daniels is going to be able to do that. You see him very close here. I mean, the scramble percentages, it's a lot more than some of these guys. But Jalen Hurts is down here. He had a longer average time to throw than Daniels, and a little less scramble rate. It's pretty much correlated there. But Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, there's Kyler. He didn't scramble much in college, but he had a great O-line. He was, getting a lot more time in the pocket. Lamar Jackson's down here in this bottom right. He didn't scramble much at all in college either, with a little in between 15 and 20% scramble rate. Not as much as Jayden Daniels, but just the ability to use your legs as an X factor, I think, is huge for Jayden Daniels coming into the league. And I think the Commanders are going to make use of that and utilize that very well. Cliff Kingsbury knows how to call an offense with a running quarterback. I'm very interested to see some of the designed runs that come out of this and what they have Jayden doing and how much they really run him, because, like I mentioned earlier, his durability is a concern to me. He took a lot of big hits. I'm sure you guys have seen some of those videos of Jayden Daniels taking those big hits and not sliding. He's got to learn to slide, and he can be successful in this league. And for the Washington Commanders, having a young guy, Jayden Daniels, number 2 overall pick, Robert Griffin, number 2 overall pick. Both guys are runners. Both guys are Heisman winners. You see the correlations here. That's why I kind of said that about RG3. He sees a lot of himself in Jayden Daniels. I see a lot of you in Jayden Daniels too, RG3. And I'm really hoping for the success that you had in your rookie year. I'm really hoping for Jayden Daniels to have that same success. So, Jayden Daniels is a Commander. We're here at picks 36. Some interesting picks here. Drake Maye goes 3 to New England. I think that's probably going to happen unless Minnesota jumps up to take Drake Maye. The Giants are in play as well. I think J.J. McCarthy goes within the top 10. So some interesting picks there. Marvin Harrison is a Charger. Rome Odunze is a Titan. Malik Neighbors goes to the Bears. And some other great picks here. Eagles take Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Cowboys take Johnny Newton out of Illinois, who I think is going to be a great player. And yeah, rest of the board shakes out. A few receivers go late. And here we are on the clock with the Washington Commanders' second pick number 36. With this second pick here, pick 36, I really wanted Kingsley Suamataia, the offensive tackle out of BYU. Tackle is a huge position of need for the Commanders, and I think he was the best available option there. But he was taken by San Fran with the second to last pick in the first round. Whatever, we move on. Graham Barton is a great prospect, but I'm not really sure about his ability to kind of move to tackle and how smoothly that transition is going to be for him. He's more of a center or a guard in the NFL. And I think I'm going to go corner here. So corner is another need that the Commanders have, and let Kendall Fuller walk, and you bring in Michael Davis and Noah Igbenogany as some veteran presence in the room. But outside of that, you got Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St. Juste are the only two returners at that position. And Forbes, as you know, had a very rough rookie season where he was benched halfway through the year. Benjamin St. Juste is a hit or miss player in my opinion. He can make some plays. He's a big guy. He's got a nice frame, but there are a lot of plays that he leaves on the table. And I think I saw Mel Kiper's mock draft. He has the Commanders taking Ennis Rakestraw Jr., the cornerback out of Mizzou, with this pick. I'm going to go with Max Melton, the corner out of Rutgers, for this second pick for the Commanders at pick 36. Max Melton, 5'11", 187 pounds, out of Rutgers. What I really like about him is his versatility, man. He can play in the slot and the outside. Has experience with both. He's very versatile, and at the combine, man, a 4.39 40 in the combine is pretty good time. Obviously, whether he's going to line up on the outside or in the slot as a nickel guy, I'm not really sure what that's going to look like in the pros. But this guy is a playmaker. I believe he had 7 or 8 interceptions in his time at Rutgers, and I think he can really be beneficial to the run game as well. Dan Quinn was talking about how he wants guys who can run and tackle, and I really think that Max Melton is a guy who can really do that for the Commanders at this level. And man, the new coaching staff, they got to get the most out of these young corners. They signed multiple veterans, but who knows? It's nice to have competition on the roster. I think Max Melton is a great player. Dan Quinn really loves physical playmaking cornerbacks. Max Melton is that guy, and that's why I have the Commanders taking him here with this pick. Now here at pick 40, you really got to think about an offensive tackle here. And damn it, Jordan Morgan, the OT out of Arizona, goes the pick before I was going to take him. I was really hoping he would fall to us there. But the Panthers scoop him up, which is fine because Patrick Paul is available, the offensive tackle out of Houston. This guy is a guy who can really compete for a starting job, and I think can start down the line this season, maybe early on in the season as well. Like, who knows? Paul is a 6'7", 331-pound tackle out of Houston. He was a 3-time first-team All-American Conference tackle for the Cougars. Not to mention his brother, Chris Paul, is a current Commander. He was an offensive lineman at Tulsa, was drafted in the 7th round in the 2022 draft by Washington. And man, bringing in his brother into the building is going to be huge. I think Paul is a guy who can really compete. Like I mentioned, he can compete right away. The Commanders cut Charles Leno And after his release, they kind of were desperate to get a tackle. They re-signed Cornelius Lucas, who is hit or miss. He can be decent, but he's no long-term answer. Andrew Wiley was on the right side, was not very good in his first season with Washington. And, I think getting a tackle with one of these top 3 picks for Washington is imperative. I really do. I think that they have to address this position with one of these 2 picks because, man, it's a position that has really struggled. I mentioned in the last episode, Sam Howell was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL last season. And, that's not a product of him. That's more of a product of the O-line because I saw how bad the O-line play was, especially from the tackles and especially with these guys who are edge rushers now in the league and these great edge rushers in the division. And it's like, the Dallas has Micah Parsons, obviously, and the Eagles, they have Josh Sweat and they brought in Bryce Huff. They lost Hassan Reddick, but they still got guys who can rush the passer. The Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, guys who can really, really get to the quarterback. They got to address this tackle position with one of these 2 picks in the second round here. The Commanders did a great job at addressing the interior offensive line in the offseason, bringing in Tyler Biadasz and Nick Allegretti. I talked about those 2 guys in the last episode, how much I like those signings, but they need a long-term answer at left tackle or right tackle, wherever Paul is going to play. But I think Patrick Paul is going to be a great player for the Commanders if they end up taking him. So that is why I have the Commanders taking him here. So I really do not like how the board has fallen for the Commanders here. I really wanted to go receiver with pick 67, but we're going to have to hold off. We're going to have to hold off on a receiver because there's not many good ones. A lot of good ones were taken in between the last pick that they had and this one, pick 67. Instead of a receiver, I'm going to go with Marshawn Kneeland, the edge rusher out of Western Michigan. Now, I'm sure you know that Washington has completely changed his position over the past year. Chase Young left, Montez Sweat left. They bring in Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler from Dallas. They follow Dan Quinn to Washington. Cleveland Farrell signed a 1-year with the Commanders from San Fran. Of these new guys, Dorrance Armstrong is the only one out of them to sign a deal longer than 1 year. I think the Commanders have to address this position. I wasn't expecting it to do it at pick 67, but Dan Quinn, I think he's going to search for some high upside guys here in this draft. And Marshawn Kneeland is a guy who can seriously have a lot of upside. 6'3", 267 pounds out of Western Michigan. He only had 4.5 sacks last season, but 3 came in one game against Eastern Michigan. And what I really like about Marshawn Kneeland is his versatility, very similar to Dorrance Armstrong, where you can line him up kind of anywhere on the D-line. In the interior, coming off the edge. I think Kneeland is more fit to be an edge rusher. An edge rusher is kind of an 8-tech guy who can come off the edge. I'm not really sure how good he can be in the interior, although his strength is fantastic. He had 29 run stops over the past 2 seasons. He can be a great run defender. He's versatile. You can line him up anywhere on the defensive line, much like Dorrance Armstrong, who they just brought in. A very similar style player to Armstrong here in Kneeland, the edge out of Western Michigan. So addressing this position, I think, is important for Washington, and they do it right here. This next pick is an interesting one. I am looking at a receiver a little bit down the board who I think the Commanders can hold off here until pick 100. I'm really holding out hope that he's there. So instead of a receiver, I'm going to go tight end here at 78 and take Jatavian Sanders out of Texas. Yeah, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take Jatavian Sanders out of Texas. Listen, Jatavian Sanders, legit playmaker with the ball in his hands. 6'4", 245 pounds. He tested pretty well at the combine, ran a 4.69 40, was a back-to-back first-team All-Big 12 Conference player for the Longhorns. 2022, he had 54 catches, 613 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2023, 45 catches, 682 yards, 2 touchdowns. This guy is huge. Huge. 6'4", 245 as a tight end. And for a guy like that who can make plays with the ball in his hands is the kinds of players that Jayden Daniels needs around him. The Commanders actually hosted Sanders on a top 30 visit, so it's pretty apparent that they like him and they like what he could bring to the table. Questions about his athletic profile are they will be what they are going to be, but he can help this passing game immediately. And, I know the Commanders brought in Zach Ertz, and I know what he can bring to the table, but having another young guy in the room like Jatavian Sanders who can be an impactful player for this offense starting day one and can have a great mentor in Zach Ertz who can really point him in the right direction, kind of give him tips, help his game a lot. I think this pick is a slam dunk. I do think they probably could have gotten him later, but screw it. I'm going to take him right here. Great value. Top 30 visit with the Commanders. They love him. They love the guy. At pick 78, give me Jatavian Sanders with the Commanders. Let's go. I love this pick. I love it. All right. With this next pick, I am, again, going to pass up on a bunch of these receivers up here. Some of these guys, I don't even really know if they're going to be impactful at the next level, and I haven't really seen much from them. Malik Washington, Jamari Thrash, Jacob Cowing are some of those guys. Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son. Jermaine Burton showed some flashes as a playmaker at Alabama. Johnny Wilson, obviously a huge, huge big frame receiver, 6'6". But I don't really know what kind of receiver the Commanders want to bring in here, so I'm going to go with my guy. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to go with my guy. And my guy is Javon Baker out of UCF. Yes, Javon Baker. Now, the Commanders, Terry McLaurin, obviously, great start. Been a super, super consistent player for us. Jahan Dotson is coming off a disappointing season. He gets a pass. He gets a pass. Penn State guy. He gets a pass. Curtis Samuel, I think, was a really underrated loss for the Commanders. Having a guy who is versatile like Curtis is huge. And him leaving is pretty underrated in my eyes. And then De'Ami Brown, going into his 4th season, he kind of is still proving that he belongs on a roster and he belongs on the field. He's been very hot and cold in his time in Washington. This draft is loaded at wide receiver. I have came to bat for this receiver class every single time it is talked about. I talk about it a lot on Twitter. I'm a receiver guy. I like watching receivers. So, Javon Baker is one of those guys who, when I watched this film, he really, really stood out to me. 6'1", 202. From UCF. He ran a 4.54 40, which isn't great, but I think his speed is more than that. 37-inch vert, 10-foot broad. This guy was an Alabama signee. He played 2 seasons with the Crimson Tide. He was mostly a reserve, but this past season for the Golden Knights, he was an first-team All-Big 12 player, led UCF with 52 receptions, 1,139 yards, 7 touchdowns. He played in all 13 games. He's extremely versatile, man. This guy is very good. He can play in the slot. He has the shiftiness, the cut ability, quick agility to be able to win on kind of those inside slot routes, zone beaters, man beaters, whatever that may be. And I also saw a lot of his outside ability on tape, kind of him in one-on-one down in the red zone and giving him shots down the field on go balls. This guy is a playmaker. He's a playmaker, and it is exactly what the Commanders need. I'm pumped to make this draft pick. Here is the final result for my Commanders mock draft. With the last 3 picks, I went with Bo Limmer, another interior guy to add to the offensive line room, which I have said time and time again, you need depth in that offensive line room, especially after how bad it was last year. Tyke Smith, you bring in another secondary guy, a guy who can play safety, like him out of Georgia, big name school. And then DeCamry and Richardson, another corner out of Mississippi State. Just adding depth to those rooms. And here's the final product. I really like this Max Melton pick. I like Patrick Paul, Marshawn Kneeland. Not really sure how I feel about him, but getting an edge rusher is huge for Washington. Inside the top 100, I'm really hoping it's either with 67 or 78 they get an edge rusher who can really rush the passer and who can stick around for a few years and develop and be a good player for us in the future. I think Kneeland can be that guy. He's not going to have a huge impact right away, but I like the pick. Jatavion Sanders and then Javon Baker. I love those two picks, man. Love them so much. Two playmakers. Surround Jayden Daniels with weapons, as many weapons as you can. That's the biggest thing here. That's the biggest thing. I overall think I did a great job with this Commanders draft, and I would be very happy if it really turned out like this. I'm giving myself 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 on this draft. I love it. I love it. I love Jatavion Sanders and Javon Baker. Jayden Daniels. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's go, Jayden. It's your time. It's your time. Max Melton, Patrick Paul, two other very good guys to have. Max Melton, versatile corner. Patrick Paul, big offensive tackle, who can address a position of need. And yeah, that is going to wrap up episode 2 of Commanders Uncovered. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm very excited for this series in the future. I got a lot of great ideas. This episode was very on brand because we have the draft coming up within the next week or so. Very excited to see what Washington does. Very excited to see what these two guys do. And the culture. I know I said it and I came to bat for it last episode, but the culture, get guys who can buy in, get guys who can help this product on the field day one. Get this guys who are going to come in and compete, man. That is the biggest thing. Come in, compete. Dan Quinn is going to want people who are going to come in and do that. I think the guys that I drafted are fit for that bill, but time will tell and we will see. Jayden Daniels is going to be a Washington Commander on April 25th. And then other than that, we'll see. We'll see. We will see. Corner, edge rusher, offensive line, pass catchers. Outside of Jayden Daniels, those are the 4 biggest needs. Actually, offensive tackle is the biggest need outside of that. And then I'll go edge. And then corner and pass catchers are on the same tier. Offensive tackle is a huge position to address. Edge rusher is a big position, and then need some pass catchers. Surround Jayden Daniels with as many weapons as possible. And this team is in a position to succeed. Dan Quinn, new front office, new coaching staff, Cliff Kingsbury. Let's do it. Thank you guys for watching again. I'll see you guys next time. I'll say